So we come out today. The weather forecast says 28 today, but I'm
28 and sunny. No. We've decided that the way to kind of guess the weather here is if it's nice in Cape Town, then it's going to be horrible out here. And if it's horrible in Cape Town, then it's nice out this side. The 2 nice days we've had here, it was raining in town. And then we've had so many nice weather days in Cape Town that last a little while. And we get here and it's like, because you come around the corner from Royals and it looks fine until Royals, and then you come around and you just see the wind blowing. You're like, oh, no, not again. They're a little bit slow out this side. Yeah, go grab a coffee, keep warm. Alright, cool. Yeah, sure, no stress.
I'm a big Wild fan. Never watched the awards last night.
Okay, cool. Have you been watching for a long time?
Since last year, I think a lot of people started with
In lockdown.
to know about it.
Shame, Igor, now you're not going to be in the photo.
No, she can take one with you as well.
And what's your name?
Andre
Andre.
and Jenny.
Nice to meet you guys.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Fist, the COVID fist bump. Cool. Yeah, go grab a coffee, keep warm, and then come.
We need one on our side as well.
Okay. Cool. We've got to shoot. We'll. Thank you.
I'll probably see you just
Cool.
Cheers, enjoy.
Cheers. No.
At least we know what
I haven't actually, that's pretty cool. But you know how the novelty of Betty's Bay will wear off, has worn off very quickly? No, but I think it will very, very quickly.
I don't know, Derek wants to like it.
Does he? For hours. Maybe we should get him out here to fucking Stony Point, bro. Bro, how do you feel about setting up, like right over here, and just watching those guys over there?
That'll be great.
That'll be great. Bro, we're gonna have to start coming to the show, like early, so that we've got like half an hour to mingle with the fans before we go live. Morning.
Well, that's fine. Just the place every day.
Yebo, we have made it out indeed. I should probably put my mask on for like photographs like that.
Yeah, probably, eh?
I did think about it. I was like, oh, YOLO.
Can you unclip that bottom one?
I've done the top ones as well, sorry. Did you want the top ones?
Yeah. my habit is generally like
Bottom
the
first.
ones first.
Oh, oh, ladies and gentlemen, I just love coming to you from
From the point in stones.
from Sand. What is this one called? Sandy Beach, Penguin Beach. No, but the whole thing, the show's called Penguin Beach.
Is it?
Yeah, but this is Penguin Beach. Penguin Beach.
The Penguin Beach of Penguin Beach. Why's the water so cut today?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, the tides actually changed a lot.
Massive amounts. It's almost like it changes half an hour every day.
That's crazy, man. It shows you how long we've been coming here.
It's gone from high to empty and now it's going high again. Ah, are you doing it? Hey, hey, is someone talking to us?
No.
Oh, you make me nervous.
Ready for checks.
Can you hear me? I still think that my deck chair over here would just be so lacquer.
Oh, yeah.
Or a little viewing deck, bro.
Dude,
Môre. Hoe gaan dit? Ja, lekker, dankie. Bietjie winderig, maar is alright.
if we're gonna have fans like coming up to us and stuff, I'm gonna probably have to start dressing better.
Well, good. How are you doing? Yeah, they were frothing, but no, we didn't. We only had to do one reroute. But being all Gucci.
All my checks are good. Just need to give the lens one wipe and then we are good to go. But yeah, we can proceed with the checks so long.
Dude, it's not good. I gotta practice my clapping.
Yeah.
There we go. Oh, check out that cut on that one's back. Yowie! You didn't get a shot of that. That hole in the side of that penguin.
But I will.
That's lovely. Wow. red-chested korhan, lions watching an impala, and a fresh little hippo, aka a hippet.
A hippet.
A hippet.
Is that what it's called? Maybe hippo.
Hippo chi. No, I'm joking. What's a hippo in Afrikaans? Seekoei. 'n seekoetjie. Dis so lekker om 'n seekoetjie so vroeg in die oggend te sien. So 'n seekoetjie. Dit almost sounds like a geel kalkoentjie. Oh, it got into the water. It was on its back left hand side. Might have gone out.
Back left, back right.
I think it was back left because it swam that way and I saw it. But it might have been back right. If it was back right, it could have been one of those two there. Okay, are you happy with me over here? You can actually go from me and then zoom into those things there. If you want, you can also do whatever else you want. Good morning, Wild Earth, and another windy, warm welcome to Stony Point Penguin Colony. We're here at Penguin Beach, and once again the wind is blowing. Surprise, surprise. So lovely to have you all joining us here this Sunday morning. For those of our fans that are competing in the Cape Town Cycle Tour, I hope that you're having a great day and a great ride, and that if you do watch this later, that you had a very, very nice Sunday outing. We are super stoked for you guys and everyone else that is competing in the cycle tour, in that Cape Town weather is lovely, but the weather we're experiencing here at Petty's Bay is a little bit more blustery. We've come across to Penguin Beach though, and it's super cool to be able to look at these guys from this top-down view. It's a really unique perspective that we get on them, and one of the favorite reasons why we indeed choose this spot as a spot to come to you from regularly. There are some interesting ones down at the bottom. There, we noticed a little bit earlier, was an individual who had a sore on its back, so we're going to keep our eyes open for that. But I believe Wild Earth has had a wonderful morning already. Some lions. And a little baby fresh hippo. A hippet. I do miss those early bush mornings, being out on drive and getting to see them. We are going to send you across now to the official weather. We can give you what it feels like on the ground, but you never know with the forecast and what's actually happening. So let's go have a look at that, and we'll be back with you in a minute. Alright, 15 degrees. Pretty fresh. I think with the wind chill, very fresh. But we've got this beautiful view. So these penguins, these adults that we're looking at now, are really just having their best playful Sunday morning. They wouldn't have had Sunday breakfast yet, but we watched them coming down when we arrived, making their way from the nest sites down to this little beach here. And you can see now in the water, lots of movement. And so fast. Whoa! Look at that. I love watching them. They get so excited when they get into the water. It's so cool to watch. They get the zoomies as they tear off in all different directions around here. So wonderful to see. Oh, we've got another individual joining us from the right. That one is maybe actually coming in from out at sea now, because it wasn't here a moment ago, but made landfall right on the rock. Seeming quite happy to get out and get dry. So you'll notice when they do get out after being in the water, there's a lot of shaking that happens. So their feathers are quite, you can see, and understandably so, quite wet and very shiny when they first get out of the water. And once they're out the water and in a comfortable spot, they will start their preening, and there's a lot of shaking that kind of initiates that. You imagine if you were someone that was covered in feathers and you had just been swimming, you'd want to get as much of that excess water off to start with before straightening everything out. Very cool to see though. So it often happens in quite a few times. So we'll see them coming down from the nests, they'll get into the water, they'll have this little swim around, the splash, they will do a lot of the preening and tail flipping that they do in the water, and then they'll get out. They'll shake off, start preening and straightening things out, and more often than not they will repeat that process of getting into the water and getting out of the water, sometimes 3 or 4 times in a morning, and it's really incredible to see. The moment when they get into the water and the moment when they get out of the water are like 2 of my favorite little moments that we get. They do it quite clumsily, and they go from this being immersed in a substance that they're completely at home and happy with to being on dry land, and it's often quite like a little stumbly tumble. They almost come like rolling out of the water onto the beach, and then have to remember that they need to use their feet again to stand upright. Something that is quite rare to see in a wild circumstance is to see how agile and how quickly penguins are or can move when they're in water. And because they're so excitable when they jump into the water for the first time here in the mornings, they often like zoom around and do very sharp turns and move really quickly. And that's actually one of my favorite reasons, or one of the reasons why this penguin beach here is I think it's probably my favorite spot at Stony Point. You get this like top-down view. The water's really shallow. It's a little bit murky today, but it has been just in this very small little section quite clean in the past, but still more than clean enough to see exactly what's going on. Yeah, James, I couldn't agree with you more. The only thing that's left to do is for me and Igor to convince ourselves that a swim before work is is a good idea. Maybe when it gets a little bit warmer into summertime, we can all think about something like that. At the moment though, pretty chilly, but you can imagine these penguins, they've got this beautiful warm layer of down feathers that's insulated and sealed by a waterproof outer layer of feathers. So you can probably find that they're actually quite warm after a whole night of being out the water on the shore, and that it's quite a relief being able to get into the water in the morning. It certainly looks that way. I love how they roll onto their sides and use their flippers to preen air into their feathers as well, and they're actually able to trap air inside their feathers, which can help protect them from sharp rocks, other species of penguins from sharp ice that they might need to climb up onto. Of course, we don't have any ice in the sea here in Cape Town, so sharp rocks are, are it. So you can imagine moving around. They're very close to the, you can see those tails working overtime, very close to the ground, and those tails get very dirty when they're walking around on the land. One or two zoomies happening. How incredibly quick is that for such a small little creature? Into the waves, into the shore break. So agile, so happy, so at home. And you can imagine chasing fish is a very natural activity for these penguins. I hope that everyone's had a superb weekend so far. We are certainly having a good weekend out this side. We invite you to send any questions or comments through to us this morning. It's lovely to engage with you. It's lovely to hear what you're enjoying seeing and to hear what you're thinking and what you're finding interesting. We're going to spend a few moments just quietly observing these guys now. There was some penguins vocalizing behind us. It would be lovely to get some audio of, otherwise the sound of the wind and the waves lapping on the shore really grounds us in our present moment here at Stony Point. Another adult making his way up onto the beach. Really cool to be able to watch this and get a little insight into the daily life and routine of a penguin. Oh, some interaction here. This dude walking up the rocks. You can see there all that flapping and shaking to get rid of any excess water. Interaction I was talking about. There was 4 birds that were not having the greatest time. Now these 2. You can see that like little bit of head tilting there. bit of curiosity between these adults. We've got what appears to be a pair of penguins on the right. They started calling a little bit and vocalizing a little bit. You can see that the individual on the far side is trying to lean his head on the top of the other one. So curious to see the dynamic. Telling penguin males and females apart can be quite tricky, as the size does vary. You can have larger females, you can have smaller males, and vice versa. There's no easy, straightforward way to tell them apart. The only foolproof way is to take a tape measure and measure the thickness of their beaks. But we can guess. If we see a pair together and there's one that's bigger than the other, it is most likely that that is the male. And it did look like there was a little bit of bonding behavior that was starting to happen amongst that group, well, between two particular individuals in the group, the two on the bottom right. Then maybe there was a third person involved here that wasn't as welcome as it thought it was. Do penguins get sad? Oh my word, what a question. Do animals get sad? I don't know. We find with many animals, and especially larger, more sentient animals like elephants, they definitely show us characteristics of emotions and characteristics of human emotions that we see amongst them. Do penguins get sad? I've heard, and I stand to be corrected, that they do appear sad maybe for a period of time if they lose a mate. I'm not sure how true this is. I'm just sharing something that I heard via the grapevine. I can tell you that they definitely appear to get annoyed with one another. And I'm sure you can relate. Sometimes you've got a nice spot on the rock here, keeping warm. Got a nice spot in the sun. It's not too windy where you are, and you're just starting to doze off. And then some annoying wet penguin comes out the sea. And bumps into you and gets into your space. There's definitely some annoyance that happens there, a little bit of aggression. Wouldn't say that that makes them sad though. I imagine if they were to get sad as such, it would be either something to do with their mate or maybe a chick or an egg being lost. We had a small little creche of juveniles. There were 4 of them that were sleeping on the rocks at the back when we got here, all lying down. And now there's just been one that's been chased into the water. So about 2 minutes ago I noticed them just out the corner of my eye, They had gotten up and were starting to move. Now, one of them's in the water and one of them's on the beach. So that one that's in the water and the far away, that's a young juvenile from this year. So it has fledged, and as we've spent more time here, it's been really incredible. We've gotten to see more and more often that these youngsters get into the water. When we started off here, they really weren't getting into the water very often, and when they were, it was just with a lot of different adults in the early morning kind of preening sessions. But subsequently we've seen them quite a few times. Now this one's gone out all by itself, which is really cool. And it actually looks like it might be heading out of this little bay that we're sitting in. One of the juvenile mates is on the beach here. A little bit unsure about whether or not it wants to get in and out the water, in or out. It was walking down towards the sea, now it's turned around and it's facing the land again. And now it's moved off again. Me and Igor were also commenting on how wonderful it's been seeing the tide change. Oh, we're getting lots of these subjective questions now this morning. Penguin's memory. Well, what I can tell you is that when the juveniles go to sea here, they will go and they will leave for about 2 years. And in this time they explore the ocean. They can travel hundreds of kilometers. They paint a bit of a picture of the coastline and the good feeding grounds in their minds. And they get to really know what's out there. And then, 2 years later, they will return not only to the same colony, but to the same kind of specific area in the colony. And for me, that tells me they've got a good memory. They also pick a mate, which they're monogamous with. They remember the mate, they remember the call, subtle, distinct differences that their mate makes. They remember, once they establish a nest site, they will often return to the same one. So they remember exactly where that is. It's a kind of innate ability to remember those things. I kind of take to assume as they've got a pretty good memory. I don't know how else we would measure a penguin's memory though. Interesting thought. I wonder if their knowledge of where food stocks are most abundant is a memory-based trait that they possess, or if it's more of an instinctual feeling that they get. Because these shoals of sardines move and shift along our coastline according to a whole host of different reasons. Temperature changes, cold water, warm currents, just to name a few of the factors that influence sardines moving and being abundant in certain areas. I wonder if these penguins can tap into that same information and assume where the sardines are going to be based on the environmental conditions, or if they remember. The last time the water got really cold like this, we found lots of sardines over there, so let's go there today. Oh, I wonder if this is the same couple that was on the rock earlier. Spend a couple moments watching these two, see what happens here. I think it is the same too. So it's that pair we were looking at earlier that I was saying was starting to vocalize. And they were starting to kind of show behavior of bonding. So they're calling together, they are standing very close to one another. But as soon as they start calling, it attracts the attention of a whole bunch of the other adults who immediately come in to see what's going on and disturb them and then get chased away. And now that they're here on their own, they seem to be... Oh, look at that. Another intruder, and watch them working together to chase him away. It's so funny. They're not too keen on being disturbed. They do appear to be on the beach now with a little bit of room. So it could be curious to see what they do. Just as I say that, we've got a whole lot of birds coming out the water and joining them again. The two of them are standing much closer to one another than we would normally see other penguins standing. So you see again, everyone's showing a lot of interest in this little story that's unfolding here. So, quite interesting, Igor, that penguin that's just come out the water is the one with the saw on its back. It's just standing with its back towards us. When we got here this morning, we saw a penguin with an injury on its back, and here it is. You can see missing some feathers in the middle of its back there, and then just a little scrape, a little, oh. Always fascinates me how hardy wild animals are. I've seen a zebra injured to a point where I thought there's absolutely no ways that it'll survive. 6 months later, the scars were still there, but it was doing just fine. And we can see this penguin actually looks like it might have been bitten by a seal. The way that those marks scrape across the back. And there's one going more left to right and one a little bit more vertical. But really, with this injury that we can see now, another insight into the life of penguins. Something else that they experience. We've spoken about the threats that they face, about the predators that we do see around here. But we haven't seen a Cape fur seal here with you on TV. And we haven't seen any injured penguins. It's now out the water again. And it can actually be quite helpful with when you're looking at large animals and large groups of animals to tell individuals apart when they've got these little telltale signs on them. So if you didn't believe me earlier when I said they get in and out of the water many times, we've watched this injured penguin now in and out twice. 3 times actually, because it got in when me and Igor first arrived here. I do think that looks like an injury that will not be long-lived though. It's already well on its way to being healed. And probably in a few months will be quite hard to see that there was ever an injury there at all. Penguins on the beach again, quite active. Now back in the water for I'm not sure how many time this morning. 4th or 5th time. This couple on the beach are still doing their thing. They just started vocalizing there again. Really hard to hear over the wind. And then stopped as someone came to interrupt them. 2 juveniles are getting out the water, so they've managed to get in for their swim. Ah, Tina K, thank you. So this is going to clear up a little bit of a story. So these African penguins don't hold their eggs on their feet. The holding of egg on feet behavior we see with emperor penguins down on the Antarctic ice shelf. So our African penguins will dig nests or burrows up on the vegetated sand dunes behind us, and they'll dig them under bushes. And they do have a little brood patch like other birds on their belly. You can sometimes see when they've been incubating for a long period of time. That patch is a little bit more visible. But it's a little patch of skin on the belly that is slightly less well insulated, so that the body heat from the penguin can keep its eggs warm, and we find this in most birds. The holding of eggs on the feet, however, occurs with the emperor penguins, like I said, on the Antarctic ice shelf. And the reason that they do that, and it's actually the males that do it almost exclusively, is that they can't build a nest. So they're on ice that can be anywhere from, I'm actually guessing, but many meters thick. I think where they tend to congregate, they congregate in colonies on the ice shelf, is I think it's still above the sea, so but it's in winter when it's really cold, and they have to keep the eggs off of the ice. If the eggs fall onto the ice, they'll freeze instantly, which is obviously not helpful if you're wanting to raise a chick or wanting your chick to hatch. But our African penguins don't do the same thing. We don't have ice on the ground here, so it's all good. Alfred, they won't abandon their chicks unless they have to. So the African penguins have the nests. We've spoken about how they look after their chicks. So they will incubate one day, and when the chicks hatch, they need to be looked after. So today the dad's looking after them and the mom's feeding. Tomorrow they'll swap over. Mom will come look after the chicks or the eggs, and dad will go out to feed. What can happen, and it is very important that both parents are present for this process, is that one of the adults doesn't return, and that will force the parent that was left behind to leave and abandon the chicks. And we find that when prey availability, so how the abundance of fish nearby gets really low, then they might have to abandon their chicks as well, because there's simply not enough food for them. And it's really, really sad when that happens. But if there is enough food around and both partners are present, then the chicks will be raised just fine. I was very interested to see those juveniles a little bit further away from the main group this morning, and much more hesitant to get in. They weren't getting in initially when we started the show at 8:30. But now, not quite all of them, all but 2 of them have moved from their little spot where they're hanging out together and are in the water with the adults. The adults are going through some quite interesting behavior this morning. There's a lot of... I'm trying to find the right word for it. When I think of it, I'll tell you, but looks like they're trying to couple up and move off and then keep getting interrupted. There's at least 2 couples that's happening with. There we go, we're seeing it again. Snapping at one another. Alessandro, I do not know how long it takes for them to get dry. I suppose it depends on a whole number of factors, including whether or not it's raining. Just kidding. Yeah, but it will depend on the temperature, the amount of wind. Obviously things are able to dry actually a little bit quicker if it is windy, but we can't see it now from where we're standing, but there's a little bit of old breakwater to our right, which is causing quite a lot of spray to come over and blow onto these birds and where they're standing. So for them to get properly dry will probably take, sure, I'd say a good amount of time. It won't be minutes, it'll be more like hours. But then again, if they do, and here they've got the juveniles coming out all together. It will depend if they stay down here on the beach or if they go up to the nests. If they move up to the nests, it's a lot drier, a lot more dry, a lot drier, a lot more dry, and a lot less wet. A lot more dry, a lot less wet. One of the two, or both, and it'll dry off much quicker. The little tails are very, very cool, and we see them, I actually use them to sit on sometimes as well, but they do stick out. Does that one have a white dot on its tail? The one that's lying down there. You just said that, and I looked across to the birds that were standing on the left to see if I could see any birds sitting on their tails, and then I noticed this one lying down here, and it's got a white spot on its tail. Now I'm not sure, is that feathers, Igor? This might be an individual that we're able to identify quite regularly. We haven't seen any birds with little white dots on their tails like this. They are, for the most part, well, they are exclusively black-tailed. Or is it missing feathers? Very, very cool. So how we can identify penguins is by looking at the spot patterning on their chests. So just like a leopard's got unique spots on its face and body that you can use to tell them apart, our penguins have got unique little black spots, and the distribution of black spots between birds is completely different. Sometimes we see birds, you can see even on that bird on the left that's preening its neck, those black spots there. Now, while leopards are easy to identify because at the most there'll be 3 leopards in a larger area that you might expect to see. I think if you had a colony of 1,400 leopards, you might also struggle identifying them by the spots on their face. So we have been looking for other features, and this little spot on the tail on the right, one on the right, is really exciting because this is the type of feature that we've been looking for, and that's amazing. This morning we've now got 2 birds that if we do see them again, we'll be able to identify them. One with a spot on its tail and one with a, I'm going out on a bit of a limb, but saying Cape Fur seal induced sore on its back. Also curious how they choose to sit on the slightly raised sections here. Everyone's on the top of the rocks and not down in the little cracks and gullies. Oh, someone's getting too close there. No, don't push me off my rock, please. Thank you very much. Whitetail has decided that he's just getting to stay right there. We really are blessed with this view that we have from here above Penguin Beach. The Kochelberg Mountains that we see in the background are a beautiful, beautiful set of mountains with a number of quite stunning walking trails. See the little fence here that delineates the start of Penguin Beach, or Stony Point I should say. And those mountains in the background there, believe it or not, still have leopards. The Cape leopard, very rare, very elusive, hardly ever seen. But if you spend long enough walking in the mountains and you put some camera traps out, inevitably you'll find a spoor or catch a spotted cat walking past on your camera trap, which is really, really beautiful to see and knowledge to know. We're in here in this kind of built up city like environment, but the wild is still out there on our doorstep. It would be as it is in Cape Town. Me and Igor have just been admiring this wonderful view. Penguins do seem to have thinned out. I actually was looking at the mountains and fantasizing about other wild animals. looks like a lot of these penguins have moved off, or otherwise decided to move across to the left and lie down on the rocks. And what that's meant is it's left this couple that we can see in the bottom here, almost undisturbed. Now we've only got one other penguin that's here with them. No, I was mistaken. They are now going their separate ways. Oh, you can see now as a new penguin enters the frame, it's approached with a little bit of hostility. I don't know if you noticed the penguin walking towards him had its head tilted to the side. BSC, do penguins hug each other? I'd have to go out on a limb and say no. When they are getting ready to mate, though, they do, and we saw this yesterday, which was quite cool. With their flippers, they'll move them at a very rapid speed and tap their partner. This indicates, suppose, a desire to mate or the beginning of a mating period for them. Head shaking, tail shaking, and drying off. Very, very cool here. I am curious to see this little situation unfold between these three and what's going to happen. Because I'm not quite convinced that they are or aren't a couple. There were two of them that were definitely showing signs of that they might indeed be a couple, but then also not so much. And I mean, one of the privileges that we are afforded by getting to come spend so much time here. Yeah, we definitely do need to start thinking about names for some of these more easily identifiable individuals. I like the suggestion of Dotty for the tail dotted bird. Could also call it Sleepy. But Dotty and Sleepy are both quite descriptive for it, but Dotty is a little bit more easy to remember, I think. There are a couple Sleepies that we have around here. If anyone else has any ideas, please send them through. We love to hear little comments like this. That is white feathers and not, yeah, that's definitely white feathers and not missing feathers, I think. eagle thinks so too. I'm sure you guys will all agree with me that this is a wonderful spot to come hang out though. It's so nice to be able to sit for a full hour each morning and immerse ourselves in the life of a penguin. The life of Dottie, if that's its name. Her name? His name? I think it's a him. It does look quite big. But I could be mistaken. Like I mentioned earlier, quite hard to tell the difference between the sexes. But so wonderful to be able to come and watch their mornings unfold. Don't you think they're curious little creatures? Their behavior is really interesting. They love swimming, so I can relate to them a lot. They love this cold water that Cape Town has, which I can also relate very much. There are groups of people in Cape Town who are completely addicted to the cold water. And I think these penguins are as well. Correct naming for a adult male and female penguin. I wonder if it would be like a chicken or a pigeon, like a cock and a hen. Not 100% sure. We can have a little bit of research though. We'll do a little bit of research and find out. I know that for some birds that is how, I suppose if you want to call it the correct naming for the manlik and vrolik versions. According to Wikipedia, which is not the most reputable source, but it is a source nonetheless, male penguins are called cocks and females are hens. So my guess was right. You can see the other thing that I love looking at is sending someone scurrying there back to the water, back to the safety of the water. And you'll find these penguins often, if posed with a bit of a threat or something that they're unsure or nervous about, they'll move towards the water. It's like them returning to their safe space. Got one of the first individuals now moving from the beach back up towards the nest site. So we've got this little dude climbing back up this rock face. Not all that high, maybe 2 or 3 meters tall. And for a little penguin of less than 60 centimeters, relatively substantial climb. There we can see exactly how the boardwalk is being constructed so that these penguins are not interrupted by any of the visitors that come to see them. So you can see there's a gap underneath the boardwalk. The boardwalk is raised and off the ground, which allows the penguins to move freely from their nest sites, which are now, I suppose, in the background, back left, down to the sea, which is on our right. And we found that it works really, really well. Like a viewing deck, a long viewing platform. When we get here early in the mornings, we see lots of penguins coming out this way, so from the nest sites down to the beach. And now it's just seeing that first guy making his ascent back to the nests. We're just going to shift the camera a little bit here, so if it gets a little bit wobbly, we do apologize. We've just got a rock in our way of seeing some individuals, which we are quite keen on having a look at. So like I mentioned, we've just shifted slightly here now. There are a couple penguins down here that we couldn't see because we had a big boulder blocking that. Now we can see this is where that group of juveniles that I was talking about earlier has been hanging out. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 juveniles, and when I say juveniles, they would have been born this year, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. They've already gone through that phase of being fluffy, and they've lost all of that fluff and grown their first waterproof coat, and they are now managing to brave it on their own. They're independent and not being helped by their parents at all. Which is very cool. Rona, that's an interesting question. And we had a similar question come through yesterday, I think, if I remember correctly, or the day before. It is quite windy down this side. I came to stand here so you could kind of have a look at the boardwalk again, but I feel like I'm getting blown away. And the simple question to whether or not we can swim with them is no. So penguins aren't like dolphins. They don't really enjoy having other large things swimming around with them in the water. So they swim away from them, and they're really quick. We've seen how fast these penguins move through the water down here in the front, and I don't know about you, but I certainly can't keep up with them. So what would tend to happen is, even if you swam past them in the water, they would just swim away, and that would be, it wouldn't really be an interaction or a swim that one was able to do. Guys, it has been absolutely wonderful having you join us here this morning. It's an absolute pleasure, like I've said many times and I'll say again, to come out here and spend this hour watching these penguins. African penguin, of course, an endangered bird, and facing a number of challenges out in the wild. So we really are privileged to be able to bring you a live show, looking at them, into their life, into their little daily routines, and to be able to observe and learn all of these little bits about them. Let's hope that the weather that we get tomorrow is a little bit less extreme, and that we don't get blown away standing up here on the beach side. And I hope that you all have cool plans for the rest of the day. Sunday is an amazing opportunity to spend time with your families, have a nice braai, just relax. I hope that it's been a nice lazy one and there hasn't been too much happening, unless of course you're doing the cycle tour, in which case all the best for that. From me and Igor here at Penguin Beach, have a lovely one, and we will see you again tomorrow. Same time, slightly different place. Maybe we can go have a look and see if we can see any nest sites tomorrow. Adios.